Hello, this video is going to be somewhat of a follow-up to the last one I posted, which was episode 137 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, where me and Connie sat down and reviewed Metropolis, the 1927 classic from Fritz Lang. And in this video I'm going to be talking about Metropolis by Fritz Lang, but a different version of it, Giorgio Moroder's Metropolis. Giorgio Moroder was an Italian composer and I think filmmaker. I'm assuming he was, based on the fact that he put this together, but I don't know, I didn't look into his own kind of history that too much. But he decided he wanted to bring that silent classic from the 1920s and kind of bring it over to the 1980s and kind of revamp it, give it a burst of energy, a burst of life, and kind of reimagine it for a younger audience, or an MTV audience at the time. In 1984, very much the era of kind of music videos and things like that. And his version of Metropolis very much plays like a long-form music video in a lot of ways. I'd never seen it before. I was really intrigued by it. You know, some people think it's sacrilege, some people think that it's brilliant, some people grew up with this version of Metropolis, and so they don't have the perspective of seeing the original first. It's a lot shorter than the full film. The complete Metropolis, as we have it now, is about 2.5 hours long. Giorgio Moroder's Metropolis is about 1 hour and 20 minutes. So it's a lot shorter and it's a lot snappier because of that. Though back in the 1980s when he put the film together, or his version of the film, a lot of footage still hadn't been discovered. But still he cut a lot out, but he also put some stuff in that hadn't been seen for many years, and he colorized all of the footage, put color tinting on there to kind of create mood and things like that. He also did some kind of rotoscoping effects. He employed those throughout certain key scenes. He would replace some skies with new skies, you know, which were probably the weakest parts of the film for me. When he comped in new clouds in the background, I just thought it looked a bit too ropey for my tastes. And also the score. He updated the score by composing music himself, but also bringing pop songs from the era, from the 1980s, from the likes of Freddie Mercury, Adam Ant, and they go throughout the film. And also he cut out all the intertitles, so you know, when in a silent film you'll cut to black and have like some text on the screen telling you what the characters are saying or setting up the story. He eliminated all of those and put subtitles on the actual frames of film itself, and so that kind of really heightens the pace and kind of gets the film going. Now, I was only planning on watching a little bit of this just to kind of flick through it and laugh at it basically, but I'll be damned if I didn't pop the film in and just thought, this is really cool, this is really intriguing, and it's included in high definition on the recent Massive Cinema release of Metropolis, which includes it on the second disc, which wasn't included on the original release of Metropolis in 2010. So I was kind of like, I'll just flick through it, but I sat through the opening credits and I just thought the music sounded awesome. I'm a big fan of like 80s kind of synthy kind of music anyway, and so it really appealed to me. And then the film started and I started to really appreciate it, because there are scenes in the opening half of Metropolis that do drag for me. There's some pacing issues, I feel. As much as I love Metropolis, as much as I think it's one of the greatest films ever made, I do think the first hour suffers a little bit from pacing. And this kind of really remedies that. There's a scene where the main character of the film, Freda, he sees the girl Maria, and he's taken by this scene where he's seen her, and he's just intrigued by this woman, and it's a great scene, but it drags on a bit too long. And he has a conversation with someone to the effect of, who was that girl? And it just goes on and on and on in the film. But in this version, it's just really snappy. You still get the point, but it eliminates so much of that kind of dead air. And so in the first 10 minutes of this, I thought, wow, there really is something to this. But by the time I got to the end of it, it really did start to fall apart for me. I think that there were cuts that were made that were kind of ill-advised and really didn't make sense with the action on screen. Like there's a scene where a guy gets stabbed and two of the characters rush over to him and he's kind of dying in their arms, and behind them is a big empty room. And then the next cut is that empty room filled with people. It just made no sense. And so some of the cuts just really didn't work for the film. And by the time you get to the end of it, and especially the final shot of the film, which I love in the original, the music playing over it just didn't service it at all. So It's an interesting kind of experiment, I think. I love that Giorgio Moroder did it, because it probably exposed a lot of people to the film who had never heard of it before, and perhaps that would kind of push them to seek out the original. And I know there are people out there who prefer it to the original, you know, cut and version of Metropolis with that great score and the expanded story. No, they prefer the 80s version from Moroder, and I can kind of see it, you know, if they grew up with it perhaps, but I mean, there's no competition between the two of them. The original is just an incredible piece of work, and in fact, Darren Locke, if you're watching this, he posted on my Facebook post of our Metropolis review that it'll never surpass the Moroder version, and I don't know if you were taking the piss. If you weren't, just no. What are you on about? Like, I'm hoping to God you're being sarcastic. I mean, I can see the merit, I certainly can, and I found a lot of enjoyment in the kind of the juxtaposition of this kind of very well, not modern at this point, but you know, from the 80s, certainly a modern sounding soundtrack with this old, it has this charm to it, this kind of magical quality of these two things that shouldn't go together, and yet somehow that they kind of work. But you can't beat the majesty that the original score brings to the film, and just seeing it in its original format, the way it was meant to be seen, with all the full story intact and everything that goes along with it. But I still really enjoyed Moroder's version, and I think I would probably go and watch it again. I mean, it's a very easy watch because it's a lot shorter, and you know, certainly if I wanted to take in the kind of the sights of Metropolis in a kind of a bite-sized format, I think that would be a cool way to kind of go back to it and kind of just quick bursts, because watching the full 2.5 hour cut is a bit of a slog at times. But yeah, I think there's merit to it, and I'm sure that Moroder's efforts to kind of make this really did help the legacy of Metropolis in a lot of ways. I read that he did it because, well, obviously he did it because he had this vision for it, but he also wanted to preserve the film that was left in making his version, because, you know, by the time you get to the 1980s, that's when, you know, it had been decades since the film came out, and film stock from that era is certainly not going to last forever. So, you know, there's a bit of kind of film preservation going on there as well, but ultimately I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was great, and I don't think it really comes anywhere close to the original version. Now, I reviewed, or me and Connie have talked about Metropolis in depth in that last video that I posted, and if you haven't seen that, please do. I'm really happy with that video. Put a lot of time and effort into you know, ripping the Blu-ray, getting all the scenes from the key moments we were talking about, and put them into the video, and kind of had excerpts from the score. So I really hope that sells the film to people who haven't seen it. I'm really proud of that review and that video, so please go check that out if you haven't already. And I might make this a bit of a Metropolis week. I mean, it is the 90th anniversary of the film's release in January 1927. I might do my massive cinema marathon video of Metropolis, review all the special features from the 3 editions that I have, and kind of jump forward, because I was doing the massive cinema marathon, going through all the Blu-rays sequentially, but I think I can jump forward, you know, seeing as I've just watched both versions of the film this weekend. While it's fresh, I might do that video and get it up at some point this week. And I also have the anime version of Metropolis. Well, it's not the version, but it's certainly inspired by Metropolis, and it's called Metropolis, so I could throw that in there for a bit of fun as well. But either way, that is it for my thoughts on Giorgio Moroder's Metropolis. Certainly something to it, but at the end of the day, not quite the full package, and I think the original version should be the gold standard for anyone to go to, and they probably should go to that first as well. So thank you for watching. Leave your thoughts on the Moroder version if you've seen it down below, and I'll see you in the next video.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.